Welcome to the good stuff, the big episode 25, the biggest one yet. Like we seem to do the highest number, like at least every week. It's a new.
I think this might be the exception to the rule, though, if we're being honest, because last week we sat down with the one and only Jeff Booth. I don't know that seems like it's a high bar to reach again.
Yeah,
just the two of us, but we'll try.
He came out to
it's
the
a big episode
beach.
Nonetheless.
That was good. Good to see him there.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. I mean, his 3D sprite didn't quite look like
3D
Jeff,
is probably
okay.
not the word as well. Yeah.
2D sprite. I made many versions of that thing. I've honestly just had like fatigue trying to create these sprites because every week
the thing is,
you're
letting the game away because people probably assumed that we were paying a talented artist, like thousands of dollars to produce these.
That's true.
Like whenever they were required, but no.
That's true. I feel like if anyone was thinking about that, it was probably in episode 3, back when it was cutting edge. Now it's, I don't know, I feel like although the GG sprite was very good, felt like that was quite good. So, but anyway, why don't we revisit some of the concepts from last week? I feel like we covered a lot of territory. I kind of got the sense that like every so often there would be like this nugget of gold from Jeff, and he would just like blitz right past it onto the next nugget, and we didn't really get a chance to try and like break anything down. Like, was there anything that sort of popped in your head at the time that you thought, do you know what, this would have been worth spending more time on?
I don't even know. I mean, not that I didn't enjoy the discussion, but my head is just so full of the last 5 weeks that it feels like about a month ago.
Hard to keep pace with it.
So I mean, I found it. Yeah, you go.
There was one that there was one, like, I think we kind of maybe talked a little bit about it offline, but at one point Jeff just, he's made this like observation a few times in different podcasts, but he was talking about how there is this like this prevailing narrative right now that AI will in some way help us like overcome these national debts, these growing national government debts due to increased productivity. And like, to be fair, there's some like really kind of notable people who have adopted this position. Like in the past, I've seen like guys like Tyler Cowen talking about how he's kind of less nervous about the debt now because of AI, and even Peter Thiel is like, we'll have like the billion robots and they'll create so much growth that we just don't need to worry about the debt. And I don't know, I've always found this like a weird take because like similarly, I've kind of been thinking along the same lines as Jeff, and like my reading is probably that like it's only like one half of the equation. Like, like robotics and AI is obviously one component to it, but the bit that I don't think is captured in this argument is the jobs displacement piece as well. And so like inevitably, if you get this productivity, you combine that with jobs displacement, you're going to have faster deflation because we'll just like not hire as many people at a minimum, or we'll replace a decent percentage of them. So if that starts to occur, then like at the first sign of that, you're going to get government stepping in with stimulus.
Yeah,
and we're back to printing.
I find it's like they missed the causality completely, and like not to sound like a rampant blue-haired radical communist here, but it's I'm not. I'm really not. But like it's. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
well, we'd have that in Sprite if you were.
It's Sprite. This is live. This is what we look like. So what are you talking about, Sprite? What's this? But like it seemed like so weirdly privileged to think like this, because you're like, what? Like what do you think the debt is? The debt is saying, over the next 30 years, I'm going to steal from your children's salary in order to pay this off. Like that's what a government debt is. Like if you make everything more productive in the country, I get that there's a productivity miracle and all the rest of it, and like we'll get more stuff done and it might drive stuff up. But if what you're doing is taking away the salaries of people, and like nobody's got the jobs anymore,
Yeah.
well then how are you going to tax those salaries in order to repay the debt, which is the only thing you've got? Well, it's one of the two tools you've got. And the other one is that you just print more money, which just makes all of those people poor. So like it's like in the system that you're talking. So a lot of the time, I've sometimes found Jeff's like which system are you viewing this from stuff like a little bit opaque, and I did feel like it clicked a lot more for me last week, being able to ask the questions directly. So
yeah,
it is worth like it's kind of that was a bit of an aha moment. But like they were very much like asking it from that position of just like, oh yeah, I'm just rich. I already own only capital anyway. So for me, this is all good, which is that I get more stuff to be done more cheaply. And like, yeah, they'll just inflate the debt away with inflation, and I don't care because I don't own that. I own all the assets, so I just get more wealthy. But it's just going to be massively like it's just going to would skew all the wealth into the hands of the people that already have it, which is again, I can see why they don't see this as a problem. But this is how revolutions happen. So you don't really. It's not really the ideal path to take. It's one where we have to have security constantly and armed guards. Like that's not cool. You want to live in a nice high trust society where everybody is somewhat evenly rich. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably quite easy to like arrive at these positions when you're already living in the ivory tower. But I think some of the assumption about the income tax displacement part is they just assume that we'll take a greater share of tax receipts from, more and more corporate profits as a result of this. And so that's where some people assume we'll be able to account for this stuff. But the bit that I feel like even from a purely like financial perspective that you just won't be able to account for is the interest on the national debt as well. It's like if you do get a productivity boom out of AI and robotics, which I suspect we almost certainly will, your demand for capital increases as well. And so like as a result, you'd expect your interest rates to increase too, because like the government's going to keep printing money, keep borrowing cheap money as well. So I don't know. I kind of feel like we're just going to get more inflation.
Very few things that happen in the world that don't make me think, one, oh, the government's going to print more money and steal more. And two, fuck for Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We've got the answer to the escape hatch anyway. But I did think that was like, it was a bit that clicked for me as well, listening to Jeff, and the way like that point kind of interacted with a couple of others that he made in quick succession. I just feel like, it would have been good to spend more time and dive into this stuff and just explore it a little bit, because I almost feel like this is a debate that doesn't happen that much. Maybe it does and I'm just not seeing it. But, you kind of see these narratives from like a bunch of people on Twitter, and I think it's like treated as a foregone conclusion that we're just going to get this like massive productivity boom and debt solved. No worries, guys. We can all
I do think
rest easy.
I think there will be a productivity.
I don't know.
I think that's reasonable. Like I just don't think it solves debt. Like I think it just puts more people out of work, and I think that's just a societal problem because we built a system where everybody needs to continue working. Like it's the fiat Ponzi sort of doesn't keep going. It doesn't work. Like it worked like up until like boomer retirement, and it was kind of on its way out at that point anyway. This really doesn't help it. Like it's, but let's see. Like it's hard to project these things at that scale around this system. But I mean, I do think there's something real here. Like I mean,
that's true.
Used these things. I use these tools every day. I can do things I could never do before, and I can do them, like just many, many times faster, and I'm only getting better at using them. And you just think, like, I'm happy to pay for this. Like, there's a there. Like, this isn't, like ordering dog food over the internet in the 90s. This is actually like, no, it's time to scam. Like, this is legitimately useful, and I just think better tooling solves a lot of stuff here. But
yeah, and this doesn't say much for the combination of AI and robotics as well, and the orders of magnitude increase in productivity when you're actually able to go and attack a lot of blue collar stuff as well. And yeah, I feel like a lot of that is kind of undercounted in a lot of these assessments too, when we're trying to forward project what the productivity boom is going to look like. But
my plan has always been to retire on a beach and not to work. Like I don't want to be working necessarily. So I kind of look at this stuff and go, oh, cool. I won't have to work. I should plan for this so that I'm ready for not having to work. But I can certainly see why there's fear.
Yeah.
And I just think this is going to be very disruptive, painful.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I was having a conversation earlier today about crane operators and ports here in Western Australia. And,
it's a fascinating subject.
I just assumed a lot of this stuff was, well, in Western Australia, that might just be the case. But I was kind of interested only because I just assumed a lot of this stuff was already heavily automated. And heavily unionized, yeah. And so, like, your going rates for, like, crane operators is often, like, well over 300,000 a year for some of these guys. And, yeah, a lot of the risk has been taken out of it. The hours are pretty well managed because of, endless enterprise bargaining agreement updates, which enable them to take more time off, make sure they've got time with family and that kind of stuff. So it is interesting, only insofar as I think, like, I've definitely underestimated the degree to which we've already automated stuff that I would have assumed would have been automated 10 years ago. And so I think there's also that part of the economy where you're just like, oh, wow, like there's huge opportunity here. I think we probably just end up opening more ports over the next 10, 15 years rather than trying to automate the ones we already have. But yeah, I think that's interesting too. And then you try to extrapolate that out across the rest of the economy. And you're like, where are these pockets that exist where we just have really high wages for jobs that I would have assumed would have already succumbed to automation?
Was it like a year or two ago when they had all the longshoremen like strikes in the US, and then they were showing like it was a common thing to see, like, okay, here's the Chinese port, and there's like, a couple of teenagers behind a computer screen playing sim port, basically, and like everything else is just automated. And he's like, fuck, that's why they can put more, like, and you think like, that's why all the world's trade goes through there, like they can do it. And then you see people talk about, like, we're just going to onshore everything back to the States, and you're like, no, you're not. Like, you couldn't even fit, like.
No.
A, you don't have capacity. B, if you had capacity, you couldn't put it through because you don't use the right automation tools. And then C, like, China built this capacity. I mean, Luke Groman was talking about this on Macro Voices this week, saying, like, China, like, built out this capacity over the last, like, 10 years. And it was the fastest build out of capacity, like, anywhere ever in the history of the world. Like, and it took 10 years. It's like, well, you're not going to do that in a year. And you're certainly not going to do it in a year when, your speed to construction is like 1% of what they're capable of. And it's like, yeah, that's fair. This is,
it's reasonable, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, I think there is some merit to onshoring. But I think the big lie that politicians like to tell is that the jobs will come with it. It's just not.
Yeah, it's just a more complex problem. Like, if you spend 20 years fucking something up, you don't turn it around in 2. Like, it's going to take you a long time to correct all of that damage and to reroute stuff. So it's like, go for it. It's not happening now. Like, there's a lot of inertia.
They could spend the next 5 to 10 years just arguing about what aspects are actually fucked up and what needs to be changed. So that's before you even get to a point where you can start building the ideal solution. So I completely agree. The other thing I was kind of wondering about whether or not I should ask
Jeff late now.
was his view on. Well, yes. Well, next time we'll get him back. We'll get him back at some point. Friend of the pod now, so we're good. I'm kind of curious to ask him about gold, only insofar as whether he sees a risk for the manipulation of Bitcoin in the same way that gold is manipulated through derivatives. And this is just me like being curious about this. I'm sure like there's a bunch of people who have like a really well established view on this. That have a way better understanding of it than me. But yeah, I kind of do wonder. Maybe you have a good answer on this too. But I was kind of keen to talk about.
So you mean as
talk about this in some detail
like,
with him?
Holding gold, because gold is generally centrally held. And then you can kind of lie about how much gold there is. You can prop up paper markets for gold. You can do all sorts of derivatives to suppress the price.
Well, we don't have like a regular audit mechanism for gold in the same way that we do Bitcoin. And so that just enables us to not necessarily keep track of...
Is it real?
What everyone has at any moment. Yeah, and is it real? And which IOU is built on top of another IOU rather than on top of physical? And so... in what way does that actually?
This is like kind of one of those system things, right? Like where, and I feel like this is like how Jeff would go about answering. Say, if you're looking at it inside the fiat system, you're probably looking at like your dollar net worth, and you're thinking about derivatives, and you're thinking about like futures and various things and how you can play on it. Whereas it's kind of irrelevant. Like you can very much get yourself trapped in a situation where you're not actually holding any Bitcoin. You're holding a dollar amount of something that may be associated with Bitcoin, but it's not necessarily real, and that leaves you open to this risk of like not actually having anything that underpins that, and it could just be taken away from you or crash in some way. Whereas, like the nice thing about Bitcoin, well, there's several things that play into this whole space. Like one is that it's largely privately held. Like, whilst there are some big custodians of Bitcoin, they would hold like hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, not millions and millions of Bitcoin. Like, the majority of gold is held in state vaults. Like, people don't tend to hold gold themselves, or the gold they do is like a minute portion compared to the gold that's held in just huge centralized vaults. Whereas Bitcoin is the other way around. Like, the majority of Bitcoin was distributed very early inside the cycle and is held privately by individuals, usually by private individuals that are a bit wacky and libertarian and don't really trust a lot of institutions. So that's probably not the worst set of people to get it up from, if you want to protect against that sort of thing. So that's good. The next one is that, like, with, as you said, with gold, like, we had this in Perth Mint, right, where there was a bunch of gold bars that just turned out to have tungsten rods through them. And you didn't have as much gold there as you thought you had there. And the only way, sometimes you can find that through drilling out the gold and checking the filings, but, you might not hit the rod. But the only secure way you've got is probably to melt down and recast the gold. I cannot say it like that, but, that's hideously expensive and nobody does it. And so, whereas... And even then, it's like only the gold that you locally hold that you can look at. You don't really have like a view of the supply of the gold against this. You don't know where it exists and how much exists elsewhere. Whereas in Bitcoin, every 10 minutes, we audit the entire world's supply of Bitcoin, exactly who holds it and how much. Like, it's just... It's the only thing, companies aren't audited this regularly. Like, this is the most overly audited thing in the entire world. We know exactly how much there is. We know exactly where it sits. It's like melting down all the gold in the world every 10 minutes, over and over and over again, to make sure it's legit. And so you don't have necessarily that same problem of like fake gold seeking in. So the way you would attack this sort of thing is through that custodial mechanism where you say, like, okay, well, if we can get enough people to give Bitcoin to this trusted party, and then we can just issue shorts against this, we can control it through futures markets, and that could happen. And the only way you really defend against that is you just don't give those people your Bitcoin. So I think that's where it comes back to that system thing. It's like, well, what do you want here? Do you want more dollars, or do you actually want some honest money? And if you want the honest money, then you've got to hold it. Like, if you want full reserve Bitcoin and not partially reserve Bitcoin, then full reserve your own Bitcoin. As my friend Matt Mashinsky says. That's the way to do it. You've got to just take responsibility. If you think Bitcoin's partially reserved, well, just full reserve your Bitcoin. we all fully reserve our Bitcoin, then there will be no paper Bitcoin for these guys to trade, and they will find very thin order books when somebody takes it out at the margin, and the price will just go through the roof, and they'll be caught with their trousers down as the ocean goes out. So you've just got to take it off the market, put it away, and then just let time do the rest of the work. But in the meantime, just have a nice life, just
interesting.
Touch grass, look at the sun.
Yeah.
Go for a swim.
It is interesting. Like the other side of this that I was keen to explore with him was whether or not he thinks that the gold price at the moment is kind of signaling to everyone else that perhaps the kind of the credit-based system that he describes, that paradigm is failing, or whether they just think, oh, it's just a kind of another financial meltdown, let's prepare accordingly, and we just keep going through these cycles. I'm kind of curious how someone like Jeff would perceive this. I kind of get the sense that there is like a broader understanding now that there are these two paradigms, and there's some degree of acceptance that you can just step out of it. But I'm aware that this might also just be like our bubble to some degree. Yeah. And I do wonder whether there's like a disconnect there in terms of how people are perceiving, what the gold... I mean, when you see movements like this in the gold price, like, like it's always something that should probably strike some fear into you. It's not coming from a good place. So, like there's that. But I wonder if like the positive here is that people start to realize, oh, this like credit-based system is just fucked, but I don't have to exist in this paradigm.
I guess, I mean, it probably comes down to who we mean by people. Like a broad understanding amongst the public is almost like definitionally like the last thing that you're going to get is. But
that's true. Yeah.
It's, I don't know, because I mean, I look at it and I think, well, if I know this, then surely, like, if you're like a central banker and you're like deliberately being evil and manipulating this stuff, then surely you're aware of all of this, and you're just trying to keep the lid on it as long as you can to, keep the party going, because that's just how things work. And then I don't know. Like, I feel like it's not necessarily obvious in my head that, like, say, a lot of like Wall Street banker types would get this. I think that's just they're playing a different model where it's more about just fee extraction and gambling and flows of money backwards and forwards. And it kind of makes sense that it wouldn't click there. I think.
Yeah, but the game also suits those players, right? Because they're higher up.
I mean, that's it.
The Cantillon effect kicks in. They get access to the money faster.
Yeah, that's it. I don't think they think there's a problem.
And
you wouldn't, right? Like, it's just...
Or even if they do, they're the beneficiaries of the system. So why would they be incentivized to do otherwise? I think it's more a rank and file. But even then, I think you're right. That's quite like a broad ecosystem of people. Like, how do you even start to stratify that in any meaningful way?
It's like definitely more people than it was, right? What's interesting being here, like in Madeira, is that it's like Bitcoin it's not like it's accepted in every shop, but it is like, there's like a version of every shop. You know what I mean? Like, and if you're in I was in like just a little grocery store locally the other day, and I was asked, like, do you accept Bitcoin? It's like, Bitcoin? Oh, no, I don't think so. Like, but which coin? And I was like, Bitcoin. None of the others. No interest in that. It's like, oh, okay, you pay Bitcoin. I said, yeah, like it's really good. There's a lot of people here that use it. There's an institute here called Free Madeira that will come and like help onboard you to Bitcoin. They give you like a device so you can accept it, and it's like very low fees. And it's like, oh, interesting. Can I find out more? It's like, oh yeah, cool. If you've got an email, I'll introduce you and send them over. And it's like people are open to it. Like, as soon as they hear less, I mean, on the Gigi episode, he talked about this and saying that like they've got a weird system here where they almost have like a different FPOS machine in Australian terms for every bank that they've got. So one more for Bitcoin is just like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. But like, you can exist here just paying Bitcoin. It's kind of nuts, and it's very normal, which is cool. So, like, but that wasn't the case 5 years ago. And even, at home, like in Perth, like there's more people that came out of the woodwork in 2020 than there were in 2017.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
it's more broadly accepted. It's just sort of been in people's face like so much that it's just seen as a thing that is here and is not going away. You know, you can only hear about the death of Bitcoin so many times and then realize that it's like over 180,000 Aussie dollars. And you're like, that doesn't sound dead.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds like very alive. Like, what the fuck? And then...
Yeah. I mean, it's talked about nightly on Bloomberg. So, I mean, you know, it has hit a different kind of stratosphere now. But I mean, I know I've got like, you know, close friends who will kind of tell me it's like, oh no, you know, there's no point because I can't buy a whole Bitcoin now. It's kind of too expensive. And it's like, oh God, all right, here we go. If I dare, I've got to go and explain like, well, you don't have to. You know,
it's like,
don't have to
you
buy
might
a
have
whole
noticed
Bitcoin.
you can't buy a whole Facebook.
You can buy
it's very expensive. Like, it's just
exactly.
exactly. I was going to buy Google, but I can't buy a whole Google.
But
so
it is part.
I bought a share. We have a
Can't
simple
buy a whole
concept.
Google.
It's like, but
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah, it is interesting. Anyway, yeah, I thought that was quite good. And then I guess the only other thing that popped into my head from that episode would have been like to spend more time on Nostr. Because it's just, yeah, we kind of did touch on it a little bit, which was good. I'm only like a recent convert to Nostr, obviously, so I still quite enjoy the kind of the experimentation of just exploring, diving in, learning from different people, playing around with it. But the thing that clicked for me was that I could just send money to people, and that is actually like such a complex thing in the outside world. It's like if I wanted to send Jeff some money to say thank you for your time, Jeff, for coming on the good stuff. Like I would have to get in touch with him or his people, whoever, and be like, Jeff, send me your bank details. And then someone would presumably send me his bank details, and then I'd have to sit there, and then I'll go to my bank, and I'll be like, okay, now I'm going to pop in his bank account details, and I'm going to send him some money. And that whole process just is, there's so much friction in that entire process, and we never really stop to think about like how much friction it is in that process, because we just have done it forever. And then like you get on Nostr, and it's like, oh, I could just send Pete, I could just zap Pete right now. I don't need his permission.
I laughed because I kind of forgot about this. But I remember finding this like really powerful. I don't know, maybe in like 2020 or so when podcasting 2.0 first came out, and obviously you would know like the Sphinx wallet with Stackwork and stuff, but like that was like one of the first wallets where you could do this, where you could just zap somebody like 20 sats without their permission, and you don't need to know where they are in the world. You didn't need to know like what was going on. They didn't need to know you were going to do it. You can just say boost, they get money, and it was it's like fuck. That is kind of nuts. But yeah, like I forgot like how novel that is in the world. But that's a great example of like how would you even like if you wanted to send Jack Dorsey money? Say, oh, I really like what you said there. Like I like this bit chat.
Impossible.
Like oh, here's like 0.0%, of a cent. And he'd be like, yeah, I'm not going to give you my bank details. Like, that's kind of weird. But you can just go, yeah, here you go, bang, send it out. Mm-hmm. He's got 21 sats. It's the nice little thank you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you've got to factor in that there's a bank, there's an intermediary that sits in between it as well. It's just like, the whole system is just entirely permission based. And it's like all of a sudden I can just get on Nostr and I can just zap you because I think you've said something or done something, created something that was valuable to me. And I didn't need your permission. I didn't need the permission of an intermediary to say, yeah, you can send Jeff some money.
It must be weird being somebody like GG where you just come on in the morning, you say GM, and then you get zapped enough money to go to the coffee shop and buy coffee straight away. Just from a second. That's kind of
sorted. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Nostr fan. Like, it really has been. So obviously, we're coming into like week 5 of sovereign engineering. This has been, and we've done like a lot of building on Nostr. It's a big component of it. It's like how do you bring together like Bitcoin and eCash, Nostr, and use AI and different freedom tech to build new solutions. And it's just so easy to build stuff and to just publish it out into this social network and then to pick up stuff that's already there and to reuse like components. So in 20 minutes this morning, I was like, all right, I did it like while I put the washing machine on and like just knocked out like a quick wallet that I could run in my command line that connects using this Nostr wallet connect protocol. So you publish events to Nostr and it causes a wallet somewhere else to take action on your behalf. And it took me 20 minutes. I had the whole thing up and running and it worked. Like, it wasn't the first prompt. It was like, I did the first prompt and then I said, can you just reflect on what you've built and just check if it's the best way you could have built it? So I want to make sure you've used like this relay pool concept, and I want to make sure you're streaming the events of RxJS so that I've got everything refreshing nice. And he's like, oh, you know what? I could make it better. And just redid it, like just updated it with like 5 things that I felt could be better. And then I ran it and I was like, oh shit, this thing just like worked flawlessly. And I was like, nice. But it's because it's all open protocols. I could just reuse like code snippets from somebody else. And then I was like, all right, that does like the bulk of what I need to do. And then I just need to add this like one component to it. And then I reached out to one of those guys and like he just got back to me and said, oh yeah, you're right. You do it like that. Here's like some code that I've written previously that kind of helps with that concept. So you can start there. And it's like, okay, cool. This is going to work so smoothly. And then this is all me. I've started working on, like on the Beacon wallet again. It's not wallet's not the right term, it's Beacon. But did we talk about it after the Bush Bash? I can't remember if we've had it on the pod. I
think we did a spiel on the pod. We introed conceptually, but maybe just do a
the meme,
an intro to
the meme here
to Beacon
is we imagine a black and white view of a gangster. And it's like an old style 1950s New York gangster, and he's saying to you, that's a nice walled garden you've got there. It'd be a shame if somebody put some freedom tech in it. And by freedom tech, what we're talking about is, free access to information and knowledge and things that are on the internet and, free money, so freedom money like Bitcoin. So can I just pay people whenever I want to pay them? And Beacon specifically is built with to work in a super constrained environment. So like the sort of, prototypical spiel I give on this is like talking about some work that we've done for a previous company in Togo and like how the internet was like so expensive compared to the monthly salary that nobody could afford like internet minutes on their phones. And then nobody could afford smartphones because the smartphones were expensive. So you're like, okay, well, there's no smartphones, no internet. Right, that's limiting. And then you go, okay, but there's Wi-Fi in the hotel. Yeah, there's Wi-Fi in the hotel. Okay, what's the Wi-Fi like? Oh, it's like, it almost takes like a second for every packet to go across the network. And there's like heavy government filtering, and you're like, what? Like, how are you supposed to get anything to work in this environment? And then you like look around the room and you say like, how are you guys talking? And it's like, oh, what's that? You're like, huh. And that works, does it? Like, oh yeah, flawlessly every time. Like, always works. Everything's always delivered. And you're like, okay, what's the history here? And you realize that, for large portions of the world, for billions of people, the only access to the internet they have is Facebook and WhatsApp, because there was a program done, I think it was about 10 years ago or so, where like Facebook were effectively paying internet service providers to make WhatsApp and Facebook free for people. So you don't have data, but you do have WhatsApp access. And you can get text-based WhatsApp messages. Mm. And so like the thought that I had was like, okay, I've got a text field, a reliable text field, and I could get from your phone to like my server using this. All right, what could we do with that? And so Beacon is taking that to the extreme and saying like, okay, how could I deliver you like any information that's on the internet? So we can use AI here. So we can say, okay, you can ask questions of AI and you can get quick responses. But sometimes what you're looking for is a little bit more complex. Well, that's fine. We can use agents to go research the answer, put something together, and then deliver you the answer through text messages, like 1, 2, 3, 4 text messages, however many it takes to get the message across and to fit inside that bubble. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, like I could, you could learn a language here. You could learn new skills. You could learn like all sorts of stuff. You could, you're trying to fertilize a field in a particular place. You could say, instead of trying to learn about it necessarily, say, okay, so I'm growing this in this region of this country. Can you tell me, this is the fertilizer I have available. Can you tell me how much fertilizer I should have per hectare of my field? And you just get the answer. We can just go and do that research for you. The agents can come back and give you an answer straight away. And this is in a place where previously you had no access to the internet. So your options were none, or now you have access to the internet via WhatsApp through this like weird gateway that can take you from like this closed permissionless network into Freedom Tech world. So the reason it was called Beacon was like a play on like the Pharos beacon of the Library of Alexandria. So in this metaphor, the internet is the Library of Alexandria. There's people that don't have access, and so we light the beacon, we light the Pharos, and people can come, they find the beacon, and that's how they find their way across to this world of information. But it doesn't end there, because obviously AIs are very useful, but they can cost money. So at some point we might need people to be able to pay for these things, so we need access to some sort of money. Well, what's the money that you can have if you're, let's go back to Togo. Like, I think something like half the population don't have birth certificates, and they're just undocumented completely. And, I remember asking about this, and it's like, oh, it's like, what's the reasoning behind that? And it's just like, well, it might take you like 2 weeks to get a birth certificate, and you could like travel into the city and you get away. There's all this paperwork. There's a good chance that you yourself don't have one, even then when you have kids. So it's just a massive problem. It's like, so we can't get bank accounts and can't get like various services and that, unless people vouch for them or do it on their behalf. And you're like, oh shit, that's terrible. So, but if you want Bitcoin, you just need to think of a number. It's like, think of a number between 0 and infinity, and you can have Bitcoin. It's like, oh, cool, I can do that. Like, there's no permission required there, so we can just give people Bitcoin. And so you give them Bitcoin inside Beacon as well, and you just ask your magic, like, AI friend. And like, so the way it works is you have these two. It's like, think of it as like 2 services. One of them will manage an identity for you, which can be like, this can be small and localized. So you could have this, like, maybe you have your own identity server. It's like a little Raspberry Pi Zero you plug into the wall, and that's all you need to do. And that can talk to you over WhatsApp on number 1234. And it will do things like say, I'll set up a wallet for you. It goes and sets up a wallet, which is a connection via Nostr wallet connect to something else. Now you've got a wallet there and an identity and some keys, but you can't really do much. So it sends a message to a Beacon brain. This is the second service, and this contacts you on phone number 4321. This is a different number. So now you've got 2 phone numbers in WhatsApp that you're talking to. And if you talk to the brain, this is like a set of AI agents that will try and figure out, what is it you want to do? What have we talked about previously? Are we in the middle of a conversation? Will we be trying to get something done? Like, what's the context that we need to deal with? Do I need to go and use some tools? Do I need to go and do some research and look stuff up? Or are you just trying to pay a bill? Like, it does all this in like split seconds. And it will send you messages back. And you'll say something like, oh, can you pay Andy $5? And it's, if it knows well enough through like a Vertex web of trust search that, I mean you, I most likely mean you, it'll come back and say, oh, do you mean Andy David, like number 1, like this npub, like this person, or this one, or this Andy, not David? Like, okay, well, I mean Andy David. Like, so hit 1. It's like, okay, cool, I've sent. And then it'll say, okay, I've requested a payment. And what it means is that it's gone and connected to this identity server over here and said, for this, for Pete, for his npub, can you send a payment to this npub? Like, here's all the details. I've created the request of everything that you needed to do. And then this identity server just says, yeah, hold on a sec. And it sends you a message via WhatsApp. And it says, did you mean to pay Andy David like $5? And I'd be like, oh yeah, cool. That's what I meant. And that's just like a 2-factor authentication style check. So I can just go, yes. 5. Now I can set that identity server with some simple rules. I could say like everything's fine up to $10. I could say everything's fine for the next 2 hours, for instance, if I didn't want to get a lot of these text messages. But that's within my control to just set on the identity service. But what it's doing is it's saying that like the person that runs this Beacon brain, the person that runs the beacon identity are two very different people. As I say, one of them could just be me. I just do it myself. I mean, I could do both of them myself. It's all open source, but yeah. So you run the beacon brain. Somebody else runs the beacon ID, and those two people don't need to know each other. So again, like this is something that I've been putting a bit of time into for a few months now. And I think I've solved it using this context VM system that was invented by Jesus. Not that one, the other one. And it's fantastic. Like it does a much better version of what I tried to do with Nostr MQ a couple of months ago. But yeah, so now I can run the brain. Someone anywhere else in the world can be running this identity service. I don't need to know who they are. I just need to know that there was a pub key, and that was handled in that initial connection that went through. So the idea would be like maybe 50, 100 people could be sat on one identity server, which is like just a little Raspberry Pi Zero or something like that, sat in someone's house. And that holds all the keys. I can't control any of the money. I can't custody any of the money. I can't make any of these payments because I don't have any of that stuff. This other person does. But I can coordinate the whole thing using a bunch of like sophisticated AI agents that I can run on your behalf. And that means that you'll get this great little user experience of just being like, all right, pay this person this, and you go. And it happens in the background. And so I'm very excited about this. So I think I've built this about 4 times previously, with the fourth being the one that I showed off at the Bitcoin Bush Bash a few months ago. And it was like, it was one of those things I was like, I got it working, but it was kind of held together with like, gaffer tape and bubble gum and like all sorts. And then now I'm like, all right, this is, I spent a bit of time when I got it. This was the project I wanted to bring here, and I haven't worked on it for 4 weeks deliberately so that I could pick away at some of the other like components that I needed to understand better, so that when I rebuilt it, it was solid. Yeah. I feel like I've got a pretty solid rebuild now.
What's the like big difference between like V4 and V5? Like
I was running like all the services in V4, so I had to have like a locally running wallet. I had a locally running. Okay. Like there wasn't really a concept of the signing. Like everything knew everything about all the keys. Like whereas now we have like a clean segregation where there is a key on a different machine, and like it's just like there's another guy helping me, Noah, and it's just like it's on. He's got stuff on his laptop. And his laptop will approve stuff that, like, my Mac Mini wants to get done. Like, it's just, and it solves, like, it's the whole flow now. Like, all the plumbing is working just smooth as, like, so this was probably the context VM stuff, but using sort of MCP protocol over Nostr as a transport layer. So that's what gives you the pub key addressability, the discoverability. Like, you just don't need to know where the thing is. There's no firewall, because again, like the idea here would be you could run one of these identity servers like locally in, let's say like an African village or something like this. One person has it in their house and they happen to have access to the internet. Can we use it there? And so, you can't, like, if I have to explain like how to open ports, like it's dead. It's dead on arrival at this point. Yeah. But you don't need any of that. There's no network configs. It can just run on computers behind firewalls. Like, you wouldn't even know it was there. Like, it's not going to be clear that there's like you wouldn't know what this traffic is. Like, everything's just encrypted ephemeral messages over Nostr. It's wonderful. Like, it works. And you wouldn't know where the servers are. Yeah. I don't need to know who runs the identity servers. Like, all I need to know is that I've got an account here with a pub key, and I'll process their requests. And then somebody else could run a beacon server, a beacon brain, and they can do it. And there could be a whole market of these things that could be there. It's very powerful. And then because we've got these gateway concepts, so we talk about WhatsApp to start, so another thing. So again, I'd only ever had it in WhatsApp previously. Now we've got like a WhatsApp gateway and a web gateway. Yeah. So you can start a conversation like in WhatsApp. I can move to a website and carry on the conversation, and it knows because it's because I'm still talking to Beacon, it still knows it's me and it still knows what we've talked about in the past. So it can carry on the conversation that we've had, even though it's not in the same chat window at all. Then I could go to Signal and carry on in Signal and it works.
Yeah, that's
so
cool.
The same wallet that I can pay out in WhatsApp, I can pay out on the web, I can pay in Signal, I can pay in Telegram, I can pay in Slack, I can pay in Discord, and I just take it wherever I go.
Yeah.
And I still get the same like two-factor type thing where I can just make a request for payment and then I get like ping, okay, approve. And even that approval flow, like we've made it like accessible in WhatsApp because that's our way of doing this for, that sort of environment where WhatsApp's the only thing that works. But it could just be, it could be a server that's running on your computer that just auto approves against a set of rules. It could be an app on your phone that just presents a button inside the notification. We could even not even write an app. We could just send it to something like NTFY as a service that supports actions. And we can just ping your phone and you click yes, and it's paid. In fact, I should do that. That would be a good gateway. Yeah, maybe I wonder if I can get that done for tomorrow.
Yeah,
because that would look even smoother. But
yeah,
it's
very cool.
One other
it's
thing,
very exciting. I like it. I'm excited to get.
So this guy here
myself.
They've got like one of like Berlin's like largest community-driven mesh networks. And so he's gonna try and build out a client for it as well. Well, no, not client, like a gateway bot.
Nice.
So that again, he's got no payments inside his mesh network.
Yeah.
I said, well, you wouldn't need to do anything except add a gateway to Beacon and then run that bot. Like if you write this, I'll just add it to my Beacon brain, and then that's all you need to do. And then you can have payments by just you tell your bot who to pay, and it will just go and pay for you. And so that would be the only integration. And then you could effectively give wallets to like everybody on your mesh network, and they could be triggering them whilst they're offline. As long as the bot's online, then it will make all the payments on our behalf. Yep.
That's very cool. Yeah. So what's the next kind of link in the chain then? Like you're obviously demoing it.
I mean, I've ruined my demo now.
What's the next step?
Yeah. Demo, and then we'll get a demo up and working today, and like just smooth, I think, and then we'll. I don't know. I mean, all the code will be out, so if anyone wants to try and stand it up, it should be possible.
Yep.
It's not super well documented, so probably wouldn't work that well. But I think my idea would be I'll get it out, and then I'll reach out to a few people around the world and just see if we can test it with like a limited number of people, figure out what the rough edges are on the thing, but then just go from there. Just see if it's useful. Like I think the key has to be like, I know coming out of I had a similar answer coming out of Bush Bash. It was like, well, I need to see if it's useful before we spend a lot of time on it. Like this has been a good opportunity to make it a lot more robust. So it will work now. It will work well, and I've separated out all the concerns where I don't have like this. There's no custody of wallets in this necessarily, right? Like you use a Nostr wallet connect string, you can spin that up yourself. There's lots of free services on the internet that'll do it for you. There's like ones that you can self-host. You can, you could multiplex them. So you have like one person has a Nostr wallet connect string, and then we just create sub accounts off that. Like there's lots of ways of achieving this where, I don't have to hold anyone's money, which is critical. You never want to be doing that. And then I can just run some AI services and we'll see how it goes. And if people like it, then we'll build it out.
What's your what's your approach been to building this? Like obviously across, 4 or 5 different versions of this now. Like, how are you using AI to work on this and build this out with you? And what's the approach been? Because I imagine it's changed a bit.
Like, I mean, originally when I was building it, like this is an idea I had quite a while ago. It's probably almost like 9 months or so when I started working on it. And I built the first version when it was back when I called it Avalon. And it was
That's it. Yep.
I was learning to code, and I did everything by hand, and I understood how it all worked and the rest of it. And then as the AI agents got a lot more powerful, like I was a lot more hands off. But my general approach was in the slow code style. And that's still true to this day. So what I will generally do is I might vibe code up like specific pilots of things that I want. Like, so I mean, when I said like I've been over here, I made like a little game we talked about earlier called Retired in a Field, which is like my attempt at like driving funding to Bitcoin developers, where you've got to pay to play this game, 21 sats or more, and it's up to you how much you play. The leaderboard, ironically, is how many sats you've lost. So if you want to win, you've got to pay more, which is a nice trick. And then you are this guy. He's retired in the field because AI's took his job, and he just wants to be left alone. But he's being chased by a cow, so you've got to try and avoid the cow for as long as you can. And then eventually, the cow's going to catch you, and you get there. And then there's levels on a boat and in the moon and stuff, and it's all there. You see, although it wasn't working just before this, so I need to fix it. But like that game was like silly. It was a silly game that I'd built so that I could better understand the context VM communication layer that I knew I wanted to use inside Beacon. Because the most important thing in Beacon is if you run this as a single service, then you have complete control over that user. And I didn't want that. It's like what I wanted to do is to provide useful AI agents for people and have no control over whether they actually did anything meaningful in their life. So, like, if someone just asks a question, you give them a research answer. That's easy enough. Like, that's quite very benign, right? But I didn't want me to be spending money on your behalf. So therefore, I needed a separation of concern where you could have your own wallet and approve transactions, and I could suggest the transaction, but I can't authorize a transaction. So to do that, I needed like another app that I can call out to. But that app, like, again, if it's just also me, well, it doesn't matter. Like, or if it could be me, it doesn't matter. Yeah. So you need to change the setup process in a way that like the user can choose who that is, and then they choose who I am. So they could choose like their local identity provider, and then they say, okay, I'll go to Pete and I'll use his Beacon Brain. Or they go, okay, I'm going to use this identity provider, and then I'll go to this other alternative local Beacon Brain provider that I know. And if you make it that way round, now the user's got choice and they choose the trust model that they want to live under it. But it means that I can't do anything on their behalf, right? Like I can't spend money from within inside the Beacon Brain. There's no code that allows me to do it. I don't have access to any private keys. I can't sign any messages that do this. All I can do is I can ask an identity server somewhere else. Does this person have a wallet? And you get one by default when you spin it up. And then B, like, can you spend this money? Here's the transaction. So like I can handle all the wallet logic of like who you're trying to spend to, how much you were trying to be spend. But I could also cheat you, right? Like I could always say like, all right, you want to spend some money? Oh, I'm just gonna carve off 21% for little Pete here. But if I do that, then what's going to happen is you get a response that says like, all right, this key that runs this Beacon Brain service has asked me to spend this money. Well, it doesn't look like this. It just says like, do you want to send 21% to Pete Wynn? And he'd be like, no, what the fuck? And if we see a lot of these no's coming back, this identity server now has proof that I tried to defraud you in this. And it's like a cryptographic proof of trying to defraud you. So you would burn the entire the entire reputation of that Beacon Brain service if you did that. And so it puts the power and control back into a user's hands in not the perfect way. Ideally the user runs both the brain and the identity, and then it's all self-custodial. If you can't do that, if you're in like a little village in Togo, you're not doing that, right? So what's the best level of trust that I could get into, a feature phone with like assuming that I can't install anything locally, there's nowhere to put a key, there's like no key management software in it, and it was the best I could come up with was like this style of two-factor authentication where you choose two providers, the two providers don't know each other, and they keep each other honest. It's like one does more of the hard work around like what are we trying to do here, and the other one does the important work of keeping the keys and the identity safe. And they're just two completely separate actors. And then now there's like a Mexican standoff style situation where if I did try and defraud somebody, well, I'll get caught out. So I just wouldn't. There's no point. I can't make any of these things go through anyway. So
yeah.
So I think it's a somewhat novel
Cool.
approach to this sort of thing. But you can also, as I said, like this is to anybody, like this is very lightweight stuff that it's built. So if you wanted to run this yourself, you would just host everything yourself. You know, you could spin up 2 Docker containers and you'd be done. And then now you've got Beacon, but it's self-custodial. So it's always bugged me a little bit in Bitcoin that there's this like weird like binary like dichotomy that I think to me it's a false dichotomy of just custodial, self-custodial. And it's very important, like who owns what keys and how we build these things. But I just think it's more nuanced than this, and that there's situations that will dictate that this person won't be very custodial. But then the particular person that helps with that custodian and like how you set up the trust model can make a big difference. Like it doesn't have to be like either you have complete responsibility and control of everything that you do, or you have zero responsibility and control. Like there are middle grounds here. I think like, you know, choosing 2 disparate parties to provide the service that don't know each other, that's not too much of an ask for somebody that like, you know, they don't have the capability, like they physically couldn't run these things anywhere reliable, but they're, you know, smart enough to understand, okay, well, these guys don't know these guys, and that's fine. I can trust these guys. I can go punch them in the face, whatever. Like, you know, they're close to me. Versus just some like random company that's around the other side of the world. You shouldn't be doing that. So it's all about like building these things correct. So I mean, it's a big thing at sovereign engineering. It's like, look, you can build things the wrong way, or you can build them the right way. And the right way is how you build this in a way that respects the user and doesn't steal from them and doesn't take their privacy and doesn't take away their power and control and gives them instead, like, you know, it's, you know, like Steve Jobs used to talk about the computer as the bicycle for the mind. You know, it should be something that empowers you. You know, when we deploy this technology for people, it should be something that makes their life better. It should give them more power and more optionality than they had before. And I could think of no better thing to do to take the entire internet and make it available in text message form to a bunch of people that don't have the internet. I think this will be a force multiplier for those people.
Well said. Yeah. So rolling out first in England.
I'll see if I can get my mum using it. That's the granny test. Like if I can get a granny using it, and she can send me money, then we'll get that. But yeah, I'll find some people to run a pilot on it, and we'll see. And like, as I said, I think in a lot of the Western worlds, like I said, you could build a really nice like wallet on top of this, as well as like browser extensions. It could be, you know, OS level extensions. It could be like just phone apps, like, and it would still use the same thing. It's nice to have your wallet available in the different chat apps. You can bring it to work and just start zapping people inside your I don't know. But like,
yeah, exactly. I mean, it might end up being like more pivotal in the West, just the way we're going with digital IDs and whatnot. But
I think it's going to be. Like, I think for a subset of the world, it will be like the option, and so like that's why it's been built like this. I mean, I've kind of deliberately not asked for any funding or support on it so far. I just wanted to see if it would work, and now it works. It really was like a moment. Like yesterday, I was like, oh shit, this is working. Like this is like we've segregated all the systems and we can just do this from a key. And there's like a bunch of like onboarding UI flows and things of like what's the correct logical way to build this out, and like how do you guide somebody through that process that needs to be done. But it it'll get there. That's all. This is all achievable. The thing conceptually works now, so I'm excited about that. And then the question is it useful? So my bet is that giving people that don't have access to the internet is about the most useful thing you could do in 2025. And if that's true, then I would expect people to say, "Oh, can I onboard my friend to this?" And I'll say, "No." And they'll say, "Oh, please." And I'll say, "Okay, interesting." Like now, that's like now we've got something. But if it's just like, "Oh, yeah, no, we've got other stuff we can do this with," it's not interesting. I'll just say, "All right, no worries. It's there. It's open source. If anyone wants to pick it up." But let's see. Like I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Yeah,
I'll use that.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Likewise.
But how about you? Like, you've been checking stuff out with old Sonnet 4.5? I haven't really. I think it's more on the web than available in.
God.
I don't think it's in Claude Code yet. Not that I kind of abandoned Claude Code.
No, it is. Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago. You okay?
No, it is. It is. I've been using it a little bit. I think I think the thing that first stood out to me was obviously like the improvement in speed. Like it's much quicker. Like surprisingly so. I was taken aback by just how quick it is. But performance-wise, I don't know. Like, I'm kind of like unsure. Performance-wise, it feels better. I was able to like get over a couple of bugs that were persistent. But I'm not sure. I don't know if it's the case of like Sonnet 4 just being so incredibly derpy that it makes 4.5 look like this massive leap forward in performance. But I don't know that it is a huge jump.
Is it like, because the mod, like Sonnet 4 was brilliant. Like, like it was brilliant for a long time.
It was magic.
Very bad for a month.
Yeah.
And you just kind of look at it and go, well, did you just make it not shit again? Like, what's going on? Like, why is it before every new model, we seem to have this like couple of weeks of just lobotomizing the old one?
Yeah.
I'm like, is it?
It's almost like we are creating a perception first, right? The perception is that this thing is actually nowhere near as good as we've been telling you it is. And then we can release something new with like a marginal improvement in it, and it'll feel like magic again. But the reality is it feels a lot similar to how Sonnet 4 felt initially and for quite a while. So it's a bit odd. I think the thing that, like, I suspect the next thing everyone's going to complain about, because I was complaining about it, naturally are going to extrapolate that out, but was the weekly limits. Like, I've basically already smashed through my weekly limit, and it only just started this morning. So I don't know. I'm going to play around with Codex more. I feel like I just need to play there. It feels like more and more people are going to spend time. I almost feel like Anthropic's like really dropped the ball on this. Like I felt like they had such a big lead in code generation, and now I
moved a couple of weeks ago to Goose and Codex almost entirely. Like what I quite like, probably like for harder coding tasks, I would use Codex, but it's like I like Goose as a general agent. Like I'm using it for a lot more just general stuff that I care about, which is interesting. Obviously via Wingman. Check it out. Wingman.com. No, it's not.
Yes.
Maybe.
What episode
I think we've talked about it.
I can't remember what episode we talked about it.
I think it might be 21 or 23, maybe. But we're maybe even 20. Who knows? It came up quite a lot. We've been talking about it a lot recently. But it's like Codex like does a nice job of, you tell it to do something, it goes away and does it, but gives you like very good, concise like write-ups of what it's done, where you can kind of quickly check that it's done the right thing, which is interesting. Like I have found it better in the plan, like quick plan do loops, where like particularly when you take like a slow code type methodology, you've already got a plan somewhere else. Like, right, I know exactly what I want to build. I don't know exactly what the code looks like. I know roughly what all the data models look like, and I know like how it's structured. And then I'm gonna like mentally piece this out into like 10 steps that I'll go through, and I'll just do them one at a time. And I found it very good at like I'll describe what I'm gonna do where I know there's some rough edges I haven't quite worked out yet, and I'll say just play back a plan to me of how you're gonna achieve this inside this code base. And it'll come back and say like, oh, I'm going to put like the hook for that is here and it's in this flow and like this is where we output, and then I'll call these two functions, and you're like, and you can look at it and you go, yeah, that's right, or like that bit that's in the wrong space, like that's like one of the areas where we had rough. But now I've seen your idea. What I would do is I'd do it like this. You make that like a couple of tweaks and then it's done. And then like I've spent a lot of time, particularly like with Beacon, going through that sort of process of like, okay, well, this is the tiny bit we're going to add. Like, I think it goes in here. Like, where were you going to hook it in? It's like, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, maybe adjust that one slightly. Ooh, that's a good idea. I like that. And it's been very good. It's very easy to work with in that natural language way. In a way that I find Claude isn't quite. It also doesn't ask for permission as much. It more or less just starts up and says, can I just do what I want in here? And you're like, yeah, go for it. Like, that's how it works.
Yeah.
That's why you've got your own computer. Like, I'm not here to keep you on track. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big obstacle for me right now are just the limits. And I think when you start to add a weekly limit on top as well, that's when it starts to become like too much. Like I can kind of deal with the session limits, and then it will force me to go do something else, and that's fine. You know, there's plenty to do, so it's okay. And I'll come back to it in half an hour or an hour or however much time I've got to wait. Yeah. And that has kind of worked fine. But when it's a weekly limit and I'm hitting it like basically after a day or two, yeah, that feels like too obstructive. You know, like the big obstacle to progress now is actually just a rate limit. Like that doesn't feel like it's going to be conducive to me being productive. So I need to find something that will be. So if the answer is Codex.
I mean, there are some people here that have done, like, I think you run like a local, like Open Router, but you'll run like a local API router that supports OpenAI. And then you use that to transform like what model is used in the background from Claude Code. So it will come in and think it's talking to like Sonnet 4, like, but using the API key, but it actually goes through like your local API router and calls like Kimi K2 on the back end, or something like this. And so on, and then you can just drop your costs. You just do everything by the API, and you just pay way less money. So I haven't configured any of this myself, just because I had like open subscriptions to these things anyway, so it was easy enough to just use them direct. But I wouldn't mind trying some of that, because more and more I'm getting annoyed at, like, I think maybe, I feel like we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but it's that, like, there's so many different places you can be rugged in like, particularly in the agent software. It's like, okay, well, have you changed the agent software? Have you changed the model that it's talking to you? Are you lying to me about which model it's calling in the background?
Yeah.
Like, because it's all opaque. And it's like, I want to know that the agent is the same that I was using yesterday when it worked. And I want to know that I'm talking to the same model. And I want to know that it is that model. And I want to know that it's like I want to know that you're not injecting new shit into the prompts. Because, like, someone mentioned that, like, one of the selling points they released for Sonnet 4.5 was it was the most, like, AI safe model in the world, or something. I was like, oh, I don't think I want to use this thing. Like, it sounds like you've gone and, like, lobotomized it. Like, I don't need that in a coding model. I want it to be like the full autist that doesn't care what he says. Like, like, it's just, this is not what we're playing at here, guys. Come on. But in the same way, like, I don't necessarily want the Chinese models where they have this, like, deep training about how you can't talk about Tiananmen Square. Like, I've done, like, experiments where you would take, let's say, the Amnesty International write-up of the Tiananmen Square massacre, and you inject it into the system prompt of DeepSeek or, like, Qwen3 or something like this. And then you start talking about, like, the date and stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, there's a little protest, and, like, like, some stuff happened, and the government sorted it all out or whatever. And you're like, oh, interesting. And then you go, no, but what about like the massacre that happened on this day? And like it's literally you're giving it in the system prompt. Like, here's all the details of the massacre, and the model just responds with, we don't talk about that. Basically, and you're like, whoa, this is like, how are you like overriding that? Yeah. The model is running like on my machine as well. So it's not like there's an API, or it's not interjecting anything. It's not like seeing this like when you pass the request over the web. It's not the app that I'm using. Like, this is a locally running model like on my machine with this given the entire background as history, and it will not answer. And you're like, that is like, to get it to respond like that. Like, you've made this like a key thing. Yeah. I think there's an interest, again, Jesus was talking about earlier, like he sent around an article of, there were some of the Chinese models would deliberately provide worse code for like specific applications that would then be to the benefit of the Chinese government. And you're like, oh, that's sneaky. Like, these things, like, we're going to need good open source models. This is...
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's tricky.
I think you're right about the consistency, continuity aspect of it as well, because you just want to have faith day to day that you're going to get a certain standard of output from these things. Otherwise, like, that undermines like all of the kind of commercial use cases you might have.
And I want to know which bit broke if it breaks. And if I only update the model, then I know it's probably the model. But because on the background they're clearly messing around with the like system prompts, they're messing around with the agent code, and they're messing around with the models. So I don't even know which bit you fucked. Yeah. So I've got to just assume the whole thing is now fucked. So I just can't trust it in the same way that I could trust.
Yeah.
Like with Wingman, when I change a model and it acts differently, I know why. And I can go back to the other one. I can select which specific model, and I can see on the, you still never know quite what's hit on the other end, but it's fairly obvious, like, that you're getting what you're paying for because you're paying for it directly. So it makes a big difference. But yeah.
Completely. I mean, the other aspect of this is it's kind of making me less likely to want to like run quick experiments on things, because it eats into the limits so quickly that I'm just like, I've got to be more practical about what I'm actually spending my time on, because there's only so many things that I can do. It becomes a kind of a opportunity cost question. It's really irritating. So like this morning I was like, I'm just going to like play around with trying to build a knowledge graph for the good stuff. Because I was like, it'd be cool if we had like a kind of a dynamic graph that like lived on a web interface that I could just interact with, and maybe have like a chat interface where I could just be like talking to the pod. That would be kind of interesting. And it just like, we have this like system architecture in place and data schema that allows us to kind of like capture all of the core things that we've talked about and map those to how we think about them and what we said about it. And it's like an interesting project. And obviously, like, you and I have talked about this quite a bit, but for me, it's like, I'd really quite like to get across how to, properly build these graph structures. And so building one with, now we've got 25 episodes. Quite a lot of it's kind of a decent sample space of data there now. Yeah. The first challenge was obviously getting transcripts where we had like the speaker annotation sorted, because mostly when I use Whisper, it doesn't pick up who the speaker is. It just picks up the timestamp. So that I sorted out. But so I've got a nice like build out of this thing now, but I've just eaten into so much of my Claude code limit. So I'm just going to like switch over to Codex. And
is that because you're not paying enough? Or
I was like, that could be just like...
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it's $100 a month. I could like increase it, but I kind of feel like...
It feels like it's not quite safe enough to push it the extra. I mean, it's kind of nuts because it's not that much compared to what you get, but it's good Codex true.
I don't know that I don't know what I'm going to get consistently out of 200. Like, especially after the last month or so with
I don't trust it
the way it.
I did 3 weeks ago, and you just
it's gone.
You ruined it. But
yeah, and that's the problem. Like, if I just want to go off on a tangent somewhere and just essentially just like vibe code something and just see what it looks like before I even think about like, okay, let me revert back now to slow code and build out the design docs and think through this and figure out which parts of this work and which parts don't. You're almost disincentivized from going through and doing some of that because you're like, well, I don't know, there's like a whole week of limits I've hit in one day, and now I've got to wait until the following week. It just seems ridiculous. So, yeah, I sadly, I think it's time for a Claude divorce, and I'll spend more of my time with Codex, but that's been the Sonnet 4.5 experience so far. It's so mixed, good, to say the least.
Feels like you can't use it in...
Yeah, but even then, I would preface that by saying, like, I'm not sure if it is legitimately good or if it's just, like, reverted back to, its previous... Look, it does feel like it's way faster. So speed plus, like, old Sonnet 4 capability is probably, like, a good combination. So that makes it better.
One tip when I was using Codex was... I noticed, like, I just used my, like, base account for, like, a week or so, until I ran out of credits, and then I was like, you know what, this has been great. I'm just going to upgrade and get the pro stuff again. When I upgraded to the pro, it instantly got worse. And I was like, oh, what the fuck? Look, is this is when I pay. But I did then go in and turn down the reasoning effort on the thing, and it got better again. So I think I put it back down to like a medium reasoning effort. So I don't know if it's like when you pay more, they allow you to do like bigger reasoning things. It's like, I don't want you to reason that much. I just want you to do what I'm saying quickly and correctly. Don't overthink this.
Interesting.
They try and mid-curve it a little bit. It's like, no, you're left curve. Stay left curve. Be quick. Do it directly. Just don't fuck around. And, we can work together at that point. But you're never going to be right curve. Right curve is left curve anyway. So just don't mid-curve. Don't think too much.
Yeah, it's same.
There we go. All right. That seems like a good point. We got a Claude divorce. We've had a little bit of Beacon, a bit of a Jeff Booth review. So let's say that's the good stuff.
Solid.